So as you heard, my name is Mark Dalgleish, and I'm here all the way from Melbourne, Australia, which means it took me 21 hours of flying to get here. So thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here in London. Now, I've been working in the React space, can you believe it, for a decade at this point. I only realized as I was preparing for this talk. Now, some of you, as you heard, may be familiar with my work in React in terms of design system space, CSS modules, vanilla extract, design systems. But going back to why I got started in React in the first place, it was actually its server-side rendering capabilities that really sold me on React being fundamentally different to everything I'd used before, not just in the JavaScript space, but in web development in general. And for me, the really exciting part of it was that finally I got to bridge the gap between what we were trying to do with rich client-side interactivity in JavaScript, while also maintaining the progressive enhancement that up until that point, up into the push for JavaScript on the client, progressive enhancement had long been a value in the web space. And now React let me get the best of both worlds and solve some very real problems that I had at work at that time of trying to have rich client-side interactivity while also having that first load page performance, as well as, importantly, SEO support for Google for us at that time. So that work, that background for me in server-side rendering is what's ultimately led me to my current full-time work on the Remix team at Shopify, working really hard to make that progressive enhancement experience a reality for all of you. So it's in that context that I'm sure it's no surprise to you that I'm very interested in React server components, because it's such a big shift in terms of how we think about React. But I have to admit that when I first looked at server components, I found them quite intimidating. Not at a high-level API perspective, but more from the sense that I had less of an idea of how I'm supposed to think about the architecture of my application, what's the implications on how I think about and build my apps, how does it even work? And especially if I'm in a framework context, what does it mean to build a framework on top of server components? There are a lot of open questions, and people that I respected that knew a lot about React were also struggling with this question. But to me, this was in stark contrast to my experience with React up until that point, because I found that generally, I was always able to have a very simple mental model of how React worked. So, for example, if I had my app component that we're all used to working with, I could render it to an element on the screen. But equally, I could take that same application component and I could render it to a string of HTML on the server. This is what got me interested in React in the first place. And to me, this mental model was nice and simple. When it came to rendering a component, of course, early on, the natural question would be, what is a component, given every framework has a different take on what that sort of concept might mean. And what was interesting in React is that the answer was nice and simple, is that conceptually components are basically pure functions that just describe what should be on the screen at that given time. So in the early days of React, we didn't have functional components. We had React.create class, and it would have a render method among other properties on that object. And inside of that method, we would have access to this.props on the instance of the component. So it's a very different API. But if you squint, it kind of felt like working with a pure function. And that's how I described it to people who were new to React. And then funnily enough, of course, that ended up being the API that we deal with today. They literally are functions now. And of course, our components are going to be rendering JSX, and the question then would be, what is JSX? For many of us, especially in those early days, it was a very interesting question to have to deal with, but the answer was quite simple, is that JSX is just function calls. That's just the way you had to think about it. So when we saw code like this, that again, in the early days of React, for many of us, it was almost heretical that we'd be returning HTML elements from our JavaScript functions. It almost made no sense to us. But when it was explained to us that it's really just a syntax sugar for writing code like this, where you're just calling a function, passing in some arguments to describe what element you want, the element type, the props, the children, it was quite straightforward. So now that brings us to the latest question in React, which is, what are server components? Seems like a straightforward enough question. And the simple answer that people tend to reach for, I've found, is something along the lines of this, where you say server components are components that only run on the server. Now, the problem I have with this as an answer, beyond the fact that it's basically just rearranging the words of the question, is that it leaves me with no mental model for how they work. What are the constraints or trade-offs? What does that mean for my architecture? What can I do? What can't I do with them? How do I use them at an API level from React? So I had very little to work with here. So the goal here for my talk is to help do to you what I had to work to achieve, which is simplifying server components, hopefully not oversimplifying them, but simplifying them enough so that you have a good mental model of how they work in practice beyond the high-level APIs that you might write to generate server components. Now, the first thing that makes this tricky is the fact that React is sort of torn between whether it's a library versus a framework, depending on whether you're using it directly or whether more likely you're using it via some sort of meta framework. So that means today, if you want to get your hands dirty working with server components, you're probably going to be using Next.js, which means that you're not just learning about how to use server components, you're learning about a bunch of opinions on top that frameworks naturally have to provide. And so you're arguably not much closer to knowing what it means to use server components directly in React. So today what I want to do is show you what it looks like to use it via React as a library, because ultimately React is a standalone project. And so what we're going to do is take an application like this, very, very simple for today's purposes. We're not even going to deal with nested components here, just a basic app component that renders an HTML tag, a body tag, and a heading with some plain text inside. So what we're going to do today is start off by building a basic RSC server. Its job, as you might guess, is to render server components. Now, I call that out because that's literally its only job, is just to render server components and pass them off to the SSR server or to the client for live updates over the course of your running application. So like I said, we're going to keep this very, very simple. We're going to pull in Express. Now, I want to stress, I want to show you real code here and not diagrams, because this is what I felt like I needed in order to get some sense of what's happening here. We're pulling in Express, and here we're bringing in this render to pipeable stream function from React server DOM webpack / server. So we'll come back to that later, but we've got this function here. And now, like I said, we're going to keep this very simple, where literally any request to our Express server, we're going to render the same thing. But obviously, you can imagine in a real-world app, you're going to be dealing with data coming into the server to describe what exactly you want to render. So here we're going to render to pipeable stream or a node stream our app component that we saw before. And from it, we're going to get an RSC stream, and we're going to send that to our consumer. So we're creating a stream of the response of rendering this app component in our RSC server. So now that we've got our absolutely most basic possible RSC server, let's hook it up to an SSR server. Now, I'm going to call out the elephant in the room straight away, which is we've already got a server, now we've got an SSR server. The word server is getting thrown around a lot. We've got server components, and now we've still got this relatively old concept now in React of server-side rendering, and these two concepts are sitting side by side. To help demystify these two concepts, what I've found is it helps in this world to reframe the SSR server as being about client-side pre-rendering. Its job is to just take that initial view of what the browser is going to render that to HTML on the server, and from that point on, the SSR server, from a rendering perspective, its job is done. You're never going to talk to that server to get React components or HTML again. So it's kind of like it's just pre-rendering. The server aspect still happens on the RSC server later. So here our SSR server is going to pull in some libraries, of course. We're going to bring in the HTTP module, Node's HTTP module. We're going to pull in Express. Now, one thing I want to call out here that's interesting is we're importing from React server DOM webpack / client. Now, that might seem surprising at first that we're importing from client, but think of it in the same way that your server might have a REST client on it or a GraphQL client. In the same way here, we've got an RSC client, and we're going to call this create from node stream function. And then also, we're going to return a stream from this as well. So again, to keep it simple, any requests coming in, we're going to render the same thing. We're going to talk to our RSC server and get the RSC response. So that app component we saw before is coming in from the RSC server. And this is where it gets interesting. We call this create from node stream function. We've got the RSC response coming in. And from that, we're getting some virtual DOM. And from that, we can create HTML and send that to the client. So here we've turned that RSC server into HTML and sent it to the client. So this is the line of code I really want to hone in on, because to me, this was the one that opened my eyes the most to what's actually happening, is that we're getting an RSC response, we're getting something from the network, and we're turning it into virtual DOM. Why that's interesting? Well, virtual DOM is an easy concept for established React developers, because we deal with this all the time. Anytime you have a component rendering JSX elements like this, or assigning them to a variable in this case, you're creating these elements in memory based on code that's executing live in that environment. But the difference here, I guess what's interesting, is that server components is just serialized virtual DOM. It's taking React elements that were rendered on one server and one environment and sending it over the network to render somewhere else without needing the code that generated it. So this means, of course, that we can offload code from the client. This is the whole point, that we can get fresh markup without having to rerun the code. So static HTML is simple to deal with. So again, if we're looking at this component where we're just rendering some basic tags with strings inside, of course, if you, like we talked about before, if you're familiar with JSX, you know that this maps to calls to create React create element. And since all of these arguments here are primitive JavaScript values, even without RSC, you could have done this years ago. You could serialize this into a string of nested arrays and send that over the network. And you can imagine writing code that would then do the reverse, turn this data structure into a tree of React elements. So that, as a problem, is actually not too complicated. But the problem then becomes, our apps aren't just static HTML like this. How do we deal with the interactivity that we expect with client-side apps? So let's take the canonical example of a counter component. We've got some state here where we're setting up this count state with a set count function. And then we have a button component that has an on-click handler. And inside of that, we call set count. So we've got some interactivity here. So if we were to take this counter component and nest it within this tree of React elements, we now have a problem if we're trying to serialize it. So if we were to take our basic implementation of stringifying the arguments to React create element, we can't turn this counter function into a string. There's no way to represent that in that format so we can send it over to the client. They need access to the code behind this, not just the component in memory. So that means that it's not even just strictly about components, really. It's just about being able to turn these things into a string to send over the network to serialize them. So if you were to have a button component with a click handler, you're going to run into the same problem. So how do we get interactivity? Let's make this even slightly more complicated here and say that we're going to render our counter component in the tree with some props. We're saying the initial value is 0. So what does the JSX compile to in an RSC world if we can't send the real component over the network? So here we've got our app component, and of course the JSX is going to get compiled into something like this. We've got our create element call to HTML. We've got our create element call to body, as we've seen before. But here's where it gets interesting. Because we have this component in the mix, what we're actually doing in terms of what the JSX turns into is a React client reference. So this is like a placeholder in the tree saying we don't have the actual elements here. We have a reference to a component that needs to run on the client. It has an ID here of counter, and then of course being create element, we've got the props inlined there as well. So this ID of counter here, that needs to map to something so we know how to resolve that to the real component. And that's where the concept of this client manifest comes in. This is an object that maps these IDs back to basically instructions for how to resolve the actual code behind this component. So here the ID, it's the module ID in the module system. So the client is going to need to import from /component/counter in this example. Name is the export name. So if it was export const counter, you see counter here. If it was export default function, you would see default here. And then chunks with some information on what code to load as well. The thing I want to highlight here that to me was like the real eye-opener of how this works is that the RSC server gets to dynamically define which code the client should download. That's interesting because if you think about the use case that probably this is coming from in a Facebook sense is like the news feed, where you may have a feed of components that are rendered dynamically based on data per user, and what components are going to be on the screen is completely dynamic at runtime. Server components means that the server can tell every single consumer which code they need to download in order to render the different elements in that feed, something that would be really hard without RSC. So in some sense, if you squint, you can feel like you're going back in time a bit here in a good way, in that you're going back to this model of having server-side templating that just renders plain markup, and then the dynamic parts of your page are script tags that either have inline scripts or references to external scripts for how to bring that static markup to life. So it's kind of like going back to that model, but we do it in a way that fits into the way we've come to expect React to work, where we get a single component tree. We get to think in that sort of relatively single paradigm, even across server and client. We don't have to deal with the low-level intricacies of script tags. We can think at a component level. So from the client's perspective, this means that we can get new server markup from the RSC server dynamically over the lifetime of the app while keeping client state. This is the whole reason that we use React versus just setting inner HTML all the time. So if we have our client manifest, we have this object that says, how do we map these placeholders in the tree that we've serialized to real live components on the client? And again, client being both the SSR server and the browser. what we need to do is pass that in as the second argument. Earlier, I had an empty object just to keep it simple, but here, when we render our RSC stream, we're passing in the client manifest so that consumers of our RSC server are able to get instructions for how to resolve these client components that are nested within the tree. So the important thing to realize here is that it's all about serialization. It's about taking a tree of React elements and serializing them, and that means that the props need to be serializable as well. So in our basic example, you can see that because our initial value here is a number of 0, that's completely fine to serialize. But this is why you can't do things like, again, put a click handler on your client component, because if you think about it, at the end of the day, it needs to be serialized into this tree of elements to go over the network, and we can't do that. So the click handler, if you want to have click handlers, they need to be in the source code of the component, but not in the props that are in that component, that element tree. Interestingly, of course, in the React world, children are basically just props. At the end of the day, they're serialized in a similar way. And this is what allows us to do this interesting technique of nesting server components within client components. Because if you think about, again, that React tree, we've got our placeholder here, this React client reference for an alert component with a title prop, that's all serializable. And then the children here is a create element call, so it's a plain HTML element. Now this, obviously in real life, in a real project, could get a lot more complicated and could have nested server components. But the key point here is that we have a client component whose children is a result of another server component. So that's, and to me, I think seeing it as a serialization problem helps me understand the mechanism for how I can nest components but in the React tree, but I can't do it in the source code. So there are two types of elements we're dealing with here. The first is plain old serializable HTML elements. Again, it's like your static markup that we're talking about. And then for anything more complicated than that or interactive, we've got instructions in the React tree for resolving and rendering components. And this is where the whole concept of client components comes in. Now, of course, you don't write this by hand, just like JSX that we showed before. This is extending JSX to be able to do a lot more, in fact. And this is where bundlers come in. The whole point of using bundlers is to deal with this kind of complexity for us. And so when you, as a developer, put a use client directive at the top of a client component file, and then elsewhere in your app, in a server context, you're importing this counter component, you don't get a reference to the actual function because, again, we can't put that in the React tree. Counter, in that context, actually automatically becomes this object that we saw before, this client reference with the ID of counter put in there for us. And of course, this ID needs to map to something in the manifest, and so that's going to be managed for us as well. This generation of this object of how do we map these placeholders in the React tree to the components that are going to run on the client. This is all managed for us. Because you need this integration with the bundler, this is why these long named packages exist. You've got the React Server DOM Webpack, ESM, in the future Vite, and so on. These exist to manage the differences between the different bundlers for us. And of course, in practice, just like SSR was years ago when we got started with SSR, wiring this up into a real application is complicated. And this is where frameworks come in, of course. So that's why, again, today you're going to reach for a framework if you want to use server components today. But if someone asks you, what are server components, hopefully, as a result of this talk, you're not just going to say, again, that rearranging the words that server components are components that only run on the server. You can say something like server components are just virtual DOM over the network. You can think about the fact that ultimately RSC is all about having serializable components, having trees of React elements that we can send over the network. And with that, obviously, comes some restrictions. But when you understand the mechanism, it makes a bit more sense. What I like, as someone who's been doing web development for a long time at this point, is that I get to think about it more primitively as server-side templating with script tags, but done in a way that feels more at home in React. Again, getting us closer to that world of the best of classic web development and progressive enhancement, but with the benefits of modern development that I've come to expect with React. I don't want to downplay the complexity, the very real complexity that's at play here, both in terms of the infrastructure, the tooling, and what you have to think about as a developer. But hopefully what I've done is given you a simple mental model to work with so that when you go back to your work and you look at server components, maybe for the first time, or maybe you've been working with it for a while, you have a simple mental model for how it works in practice and what those trade-offs mean for you in terms of your application. That's it for me. Thank you so much for listening.